Welcome to this Arnold Culliford Techniques tutorial on using the clasped weft join for colour changes. This tutorial follows on from our basic clasp weft join video, and I've left a link to that in the video notes. This is a brilliant technique for changing to a new colour of yarn in exactly the right spot. There are no ends to weave in afterwards, and it's particularly suitable for non-felting yarns. So this brioche chevron wrap has been knitted in some superwash yarns, and I've used the technique to join from the pink here to the turquoise, and as you can see, it's a pretty invisible join. If you're working with a yarn that felts, such as a woolen yarn, then I would recommend splicing to join from one colour to the next, and there's a link to our video tutorial on that technique in the notes for this video. So the clasp weft join. The basic premise of this join, the basic way it works, is that you have your old yarn and your new yarn, and you're literally just going to fold them against each other and then knit a few stitches with the old yarn both ends and then a few with the new yarn both ends. And what I'm going to do now is show you how to put that colour change point in exactly the correct spot. You can use this colour change technique when you're working a stripe pattern, as in the brioche chevron wrap, but also when you're doing stranded colour work, it works great as well. So in this swatch, I've been working in the red and the cream yarns, and now I want to change from the red to a pink colour instead, and I want that colour change to happen at exactly the start of the round, so that when I start the new round, I've got pink instead of red. And the first thing to do is to work in your pattern all the way up to the end of the round. Once I've knitted to the end of the round, I take the yarn that I want to change, and I'm going to pinch it or hold on to it just at the point where it's behind the start of the round marker. Now you can keep hold of it there, or if you're a little unsure, think you might drop it, then the other thing you can do is use a nice sharp locking stitch marker to just go through the yarn there to mark that point. While I'm knitting, I usually pinch it, but just so that you can see what's going on, I'm going to use the marker there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to unknit around 6 of the red stitches. So that's the first red stitch I'm unknitting. 2, 3, 4, oops, 5, 6. The number of stitches that you choose to unknit is very much down to personal preference. This is a double knit weight of yarn, and it's superwash, so it's slippery, so I like to have around 6 stitches knitted in the doubled yarns, but you may feel comfortable with 3 or 4. It's entirely personal preference, and yeah, I've chosen 6 today. I might choose differently on another day. I'm now going to fold the yarn at that marked point so that I have a length of doubled yarn, and I'm going to rework those stitches I just unknitted with the doubled yarn, making sure that the point at which it folds is the marked point, or where you pinched it with your fingers. So I'm knitting with both strands, 1, 2, 3, and then I have a cream stitch, which I do as normal, and then I've got another 1, 2, and you want to stop when you've just got a small loop of yarn remaining. You can now remove the marker if you were using one. And you're going to thread your new colour of yarn through that loop. Okay, so it's now folded through the old colour of yarn, and you want to leave plenty of tail. You'll get a feel for how long it needs to be for the number of stitches you want to knit doubled, but if you leave plenty you can just trim it back. And now you're just going to carry on working with those doubled yarns again. So I have one more stitch to knit in the red, and then the last 2 stitches of the round with a cream, which hasn't changed. And now I'm going to knit the first stitch of the new round with the pink yarn, and you'll see that we have changed colour at exactly the right spot. And if we just carry on for a little bit, again I'm going to work a good number of stitches in the doubled pink yarns. 1, 2, that's 3 stitches in the pink yarn, 2 more cream, and then obviously you're following your pattern, working whatever combinations you need to. And once you've worked enough stitches to really secure those ends, you can then drop the tail and continue to work with just the single strand of yarn. So some cream, and now when I'm using the pink it will just be the single strand of yarn that I'm working with. All that remains now is to trim off the tail of the red yarn. That was our old one. I always leave a little tab on the wrong side so that it doesn't poke through to the right side. If you were wanting it to be invisible on the wrong side as well, you might leave that tail longer and then choose to just weave it back on itself. But for this, it's completely fine to just trim it back there. And I'm going to do the same with the pink one. Just trim off the tail. And for these mittens, I won't have to do any further weaving in at the end of the project. As I said before, the number of stitches you work in the double yarns is a matter of personal choice. You will find that this technique is brilliant on finer yarns. Once you get into kind of Aran or worsted weight and maybe thicker than that, then the doubled yarn is perhaps going to be a little bit more obvious. But in double knit and fingering or 4-ply, it's absolutely fine. And when you come to work across these stitches on the next round, then each of these stitches that was worked with the 2 ends will just be worked together, and you'll end up with that almost invisible join. I hope that gives you heaps of confidence in changing colours in exactly the right spot. It's a really handy technique. We have lots more tutorials, hints and tips over on our website. Do click the link up here to visit and explore. If you found our video tutorials helpful, please do leave a super thanks tip using the button below. Tips and pattern purchases help us to create more videos and to keep them advert free. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're sure not to miss our next video tutorial with the round button here. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye bye.